let's jump to the final portion of the presentation. You have looked at how to visualize and operate the production line, including making control changes. You have seen how to build a single source of truth and how to collaborate between different team members to get there, and how to build and maintain different versions of a same process line so that you can go back and audit it and have a audit trail for any sort of compliance. Let's look at what are the flexibility options available to the administrators to configure and manage the platform. So let's jump to Kelvin Manager. Kelvin Manager is essentially the place where you have administration capabilities. So there are a lot of things here. I want to show you some important aspects of Kelvin Manager. The first part is how do you build your asset model. The asset model and hierarchy is an intrinsic part of any kind of manufacturing operations data. Here, as you can see, I have mapped the entire Acme Corp hierarchy. So if you remember on Kelvin Maps, I showed you 4 different sites over here, Denver, Houston, Lisbon, and Melbourne. Each of them has different number of production lines, different kinds of businesses. For example, Denver has chemicals, Houston has oil and gas fields. All of those can be replicated over here, and each of the assets and components of those assets can be recorded inside this asset hierarchy. You can do that by hand, or you can very easily import it in a CSV file. We provide a template that you can download, pump in data from there, and you can import data in bulk in order to build your asset hierarchy. The third option is that we have APIs for you to go and connect to a third-party ERP system like SAP or any other place where you're maintaining your asset hierarchy. You can very easily import it in there. Another cool thing that you can do here is build assets from scratch or use assets that we already have in our library. So once again, this asset model is ISA compliant. You can see that it has all the different levels in the hierarchy that you would find in the ISA model. It goes down from assets to components within those assets, parts within those assets, even sensors that you may want to add on an asset. So for example, you can create a new enterprise over here, and we will call it International Manufacturing. It's an enterprise that you have created. Now you want to add a new location in your enterprise. You can very easily do that by adding a site under it, and you can call it, I should drag it under this. So under International Manufacturing, you have a site. You can call it India Ops. And once you have added this site, you can now start adding, assets in there. Maybe you have a centrifugal pump in one of these sites. So I can very easily drag and drop, a centrifugal pump under this particular site. The cool thing here is it not only brings in that particular centrifugal pump, the asset, but it also brings in all the parts and components under those assets. So for example, you can see that there's a base and foundation, there's jaw coupling, there are parts inside them, there's the AC motor, there's parts inside them. Now, if you want to go in and add a sensor to the AC motor, you can very easily go in and drag and drop something from here. So for example, if I want to add a vibration sensor to the AC motor, it's going to be very easy to go and drag and drop this in here, and I can go and enable failure detection, which in this case is enabled by default, and it's already going to start tracking a number of different properties in your asset that you just added. It's also going to show you a number of validations in your data that you may have to perform. So for example, it is throwing me errors to say that I need to correct the display names and make sure that the failure classes are activated across different hierarchies. So it's a very intuitive system which not only allows you to add and build your asset hierarchy from scratch, but it also runs these validation steps so that you have the right data and the data quality is maintained in your platform. I'm going to discard these changes for now. The second part that I want to show is how do you run applications. We have a huge amount of data being brought into the platform, but you need to run some applications on that data to make use of that data. So for example, here we have a forecasting simulator on a beam pump, and this application has been deployed on a node. I'll come to the node in a moment, but here you can see that you have different versions of the application. So if you want to roll back or add in a new version and launch that version, you can very easily do that. Within an application, you're able to see the logs of that application, the configuration, any kind of metadata associated with that application on that particular node. Going back to an application, it's very easy to create an app. We have a very powerful SDK. We have links to the documentation from here. So if you have an application developer who's writing this app, it's very simple and straightforward to launch those apps in a packaged Kubernetes container and directly deploy it to a particular node where you want it to run at the edge. Now, what is a node? Let's go check them out. These are several nodes which are linked to Kelvin Manager as the cloud deployment. Each of these nodes can be living out there on the edge. So for example, on this node, we have a beam pump connected to that particular node, which means that out in the oil field, there is instrumentation on a beam pump. All that data is coming to a edge node, which is deployed somewhere near the oil field, near the edge. And the Kelvin application, Dynacard forecasting simulator, is actually running on that node. And you can go look at telemetry on that node. You can go into each of these workloads on that particular node and look at how they are getting data and what they are doing for that particular application. On each of those nodes, we can also build bridges. Bridges are Kelvin's terminology for connectors or adapters to your OT network. So for example, here we have an OPC UA bridge, and you can see that a number of assets are connected to these OPC UA bridge and reading a variety of metrics over here. It's very easy to create and deploy a new bridge. We have pre-built bridges for OPC UA, for MQTT, for ROC, and the Kelvin SDK is really powerful and easy to use for you to create new bridges from scratch. When you configure a new bridge, there is a easy to use wizard. So I'm editing a bridge here, but these are the same steps for configuring a new bridge. You are going to give it some identifiers. You can choose the connection protocol and advanced settings for the protocol. You can select the authentication mechanisms over here. It can be credentials, it can be certificate. We also integrate through SSO to your existing enterprise AD. Once you have made those configurations, now you can actually link which asset and which metric is going to be reported on this particular bridge. If you do not want to do this by hand, there's also a way to do it through a CSV upload through a template that I showed you before. So to summarize, Kelvin Manager has the ability for you to organize your assets in a very intuitive manner, whether you want to do it through a UI or programmatically. You can deploy third-party applications, you can bring your own machine learning models. When you come in and deploy it with an SDK in Kelvin Manager, it packages up that machine learning model or an application into a Kubernetes container and deploys it at the right node. You can deploy nodes at the edge and manage them. You can deploy bridges or connectors on those nodes which go and connect to your OT network or your equipment out in the field and come and fetch data and provide it to the Kelvin platform. Another aspect, finally, I wanted to show you is that you can configure your platform to receive SMS and email alerts. When I was doing the demos just before here, it sent me a bunch of email alerts. These same alerts can be delivered through SMS as well. So again, it's a very easy to use and easy to configure system, and you can have notifications delivered to you and configure from the same place. To conclude, I showed you how to visualize and operate the process end-to-end, including making control changes, how to build a single source of truth, and how to bring flexibility for admins to configure and manage this platform. We are committed to solving the issues related to net zero goals, bringing carbon under control, and ultimately delivering sustainable operations while still meeting production goals. There's a lot of new cool stuff coming out on the Kelvin platform. So if you want to go check out what we are up to, go visit our website kelvin.ai, connect with us on LinkedIn. We continuously publish a lot of new updates over there, and we look forward to engaging with you pretty soon. Thank you.